hear, be yourself, be yourself.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you hear it, but do you necessarily apply it? Not always,
Mm,
especially in the corporate world. People are wearing facades left, right, and
right.
center.
Welcome, everybody. This is Alpha Delta, a podcast where I have conversations with people who are operating at a higher level with the hopes that it motivates and inspires people to become the best version of themselves. So today, I'm joined by Rebecca Muriuki. Rebecca is someone who has really inspired me just along my career. She's actually someone who interviewed me when I was applying for an internship at Deloitte. That's how we first met. But just from that experience and now like getting to learn a bit more about her, I think just the things that she's done, the things that she's doing can really inspire a lot of people. But Rebecca, for those who don't know you, could you just introduce yourself, let us know who you are, where you're from, what you do, and where you go to school?
Hi everyone. Hi Joe. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast show. It's a real honor. I am really honored to be invited onto your show. My name is Rebecca Muriuki. I am an associate director at Deloitte and I lead the actuarial team for the East African division. I actually was born in Kenya, but bred and raised in South Africa. So if you're
Interesting.
wondering why the accent is not purely Kenyan, that's the reason. And
Right.
then I moved back to Kenya it's been about 8 years. Wow, time flies. About 8 years ago, I moved here to start a family with my then fiance, now husband. And I am now a mom of three, including twins. So it's been a very interesting journey, building back my career while raising a family and becoming a mom at the same time. So I went to school. You asked where I went to school. I went to school
Right.
in South Africa and I did my university in South Africa as well. Anyone who's a UCT alumni, please shout out and say hi to me on LinkedIn. And yeah, since then it's been very interesting how, there's been twists and turns in my career. And now I'm getting into this space where it's more about impact.
Right.
And I guess it comes with age or experience, I
Mm,
don't know. And so that's what has influenced my new passion, or
right.
just finding the passion I've always had to help other women elevate their careers. As
Right.
we all know, there is still a huge diversity gap in the corporate world when you look at women in leadership versus men in leadership. And in my experience, every time I have moved up in my career journey, it's become lonelier and lonelier. And I've
Right.
always thought, oh my goodness, how can I bring more women with me on this journey? And
Right.
that's how the Elevate Her community was born, which
Hmm.
is my community where I coach women and help them get paid, promoted, and really recognized based on what they rightfully deserve.
Right. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. Um, I know you sort of hinted at it during just your introduction, but my first question for you is, what are you passionate about and why?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think definitely very, very passionate about the women agenda in all things. And
Hmm.
I think becoming a mom has just really strengthened that passion, because I can see, you have to just get into someone's shoes to understand
Right.
exactly what they're going through.
Hmm.
And, it's also not coincidental that as women, when you are in that point in your career where it's supposed to peak, it's
Right.
also the same time when you're raising a family. And so that
Right.
also becomes a challenge in us being able to sort of accelerate our path to success versus our male colleagues.
Right.
So for me, that has just been ignited so much passion, especially when I had my twin girls, to really
Hmm.
inspire other women to know that you can be a mom and, a successful career
Right.
woman. You don't have to choose between the two. They are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
And so that's how I hope to inspire other women. I also love doing other things. So I love traveling very, very much. Of course, with the kids, that has kind of reduced as well
Right.
as the pandemic. But
Right.
hopefully, soon I'll get back on, yeah, on the road traveling. I love watching sports, specifically tennis
Oh,
and Formula
nice.
One. So
Oh,
this year
nice.
was very emotional with
Let me
Serena
guess.
Williams and
Uh-huh. Right.
yeah, yeah. So tennis wise, Serena
Yeah,
Williams
Serena
and
Williams,
Roger
of
Federer
course.
resigning in the
Yeah.
same year or retiring has been very emotional.
Right.
And then on the Formula One side, is that what you were about to guess? Like
Yeah,
who
yeah.
I
Lewis Hamilton. Yeah,
of
probably.
course, Team
Oh
LH all the
man.
way.
Oh man. I'm a Red Bull fan. I support Verstappen all the
Oh
way.
no,
So
you did not just say that.
I love the guy. I
I
love the
should
young
have asked
blood.
you that before I agreed to interview.
Right,
All
right.
good, all good.
Yeah. Okay, awesome, awesome. Great. So the next question I have for you is, taking a step back. I want to just talk a bit about your childhood. Like just give us a general idea of like what was that like for you. What do you spend your time doing? What was high school like for you? Just give us that whole picture of what was growing up like for you.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. And I talk about my childhood, or at least I sprinkle it in my content,
Hmm.
because it's so relevant, especially for women of color, because
Right,
how we were raised influences how we show up at work.
right,
And some of the things or some of the ways in which we are raised actually works against us
right,
in the corporate world. So, I was raised in a traditional Black family. My dad was a lecturer, my mom was a doctor, and they came from extreme poverty. I
right.
still, remember stories my dad would give us when we were growing up, how he got his first pair of shoes when he went to high school.
Wow.
And so for them, us having education and us being A-star students was,
Mm,
non-negotiable.
right,
So I spent, most of my childhood, at least the early formative years, was very, very much driven by education. We would spend weekends doing math homework and extra homework that my dad
right.
would give us. And at
Yeah.
the time, of course, we felt, oh, this was so much punishment.
Right.
But when I look back, I realized that for them, that was the only sort of avenue out of
Right.
what they experience in their
Mm,
childhood. And for them, that was the only thing they could give us, a good education. And that's
right.
what they did. So most of my childhood memories, I remember around, working on weekends, doing homework, extra homework, extramural activities were there,
Right.
but a lot of them were like
Hmm.
going to Kumon math
Yeah.
or, you know, doing stuff that were related to helping us excel in our
Right.
education. But we also did have a little bit of fun, although it wasn't the same as what my colleagues experienced, right? And that also has an impact, when you get to work and, there's the usual banter and people are talking about where they went on holiday
Right.
with their families, and the only story you can tell is you going to the village to visit your grandparents, right?
Hmm.
Which is
Yeah.
not always what you hear other people talk about when you
Right.
get to the corporate world. Yeah, so those are the memories that stand out as a child, and then even just school holidays were very interesting, and even going into the workplace, I had very different stories to what my typical, white colleagues would talk about. They would talk about
Right.
how they went to Disney World, and I would talk about how, or I would not talk about how we, went to the village to visit my grandparents, just
Right.
because that was my parents' version of what a holiday meant.
Right.
And so, I mean, I'm grateful for the experiences I had, but I think they also shaped a lot what I experienced, especially I would say the first half of my career, in terms of, how I behaved, how I treated authority. If you grew up in a Black household,
Yeah, you gotta
children are
respect.
to be is it children are to be seen and not heard.
Right,
Yeah, you have to
right.
respect, you don't answer back, you do not challenge authority. And
Absolutely.
so I took all of those childhood experiences into the
Hmm.
workplace, which didn't always work for me.
Right,
But I'm grateful because now I'm able to share with other women who grew up
right,
just like me, and who maybe have these same assumptions that they don't even realize are influencing how they behave and how they show up at work.
right, right. That's yeah. No, that's very interesting. I think for me, from your story, I really resonate with the educational part towards how you grew up because it's just similarly for me, like my parents really stressed just the importance of education, right? I remember like for me,
Yeah.
spend like some summers going for like summer classes and like getting extra lessons on certain things, getting tutors, especially during exam periods and things like that. So and there's actually something that goes to say about just like prioritizing education and upbringing and sort of how it reflects someone's trajectory over a period of time. I definitely see there's some
Mm-hmm.
correlation to some degree about it. Um, so yeah, so my next question is, can you walk us through how you got to where you are today? Just tell us a bit about your career path, and like, what are some of the things you've done?
Yeah, yeah. So it's been 10 years. Oh my goodness. Hope I'm not giving my age away. It's been 10 years since I stepped foot into the corporate world. So I was fortunate enough to get a job offer before I even graduated. So how the system works in South Africa is there'll typically be career fairs in your last year of university. And so the most of the corporates will be coming to look for, who they can hire, and obviously they want the best of the best. So I was fortunate enough to get a placement at another audit firm. I won't reveal which one it is, but you can obviously check on my LinkedIn profile and you'll find out. And so that's where I started. And I had no clue what I was getting myself into. So, like I
Right,
said, because my life had been about education a lot, education was a huge pillar in my life. And so I was used to getting A's. I left high school with plain A's. When I went to university, it wasn't the same, but I still worked hard, and most of the time I would, get grades that were good enough for me to go to the next year. So I studied actuarial science, and that was hard in itself. That was hard
right,
enough. But I finished in record time. I got as many exemptions as I could that went towards my professional qualification. And so I was used to, you put in the hard work, you stay out of trouble, you'll get the results. And
right,
so I went into the workplace with that mentality, but it was just a different jungle altogether.
right,
And it took some time for me to kind of understand those unwritten rules of
right,
the corporate game and how things actually work. And it's not just about how hard you work, because all my colleagues were working just as hard, if not harder than me.
right,
And, you actually needed to put a voice behind your work.
right.
Because something else I experienced was people would even take credit for my work because I
Mm,
wasn't saying anything about it.
right,
And I wasn't being vocal and I wasn't sharing my opinions. And so sometimes people would think I don't have opinions, or they
right,
wouldn't even realize that I contributed towards the project or whatever problem it was that we were solving. So those are some of the earlier career challenges I would say I faced, but over time with mentors, um, most of them were actually unsolicited. Uh,
mm-hmm.
I
Right,
really got to learn about those unwritten rules, and I really started to now strategically position myself for promotions, for better opportunities, and to start to really shape my identity as an expert and as, a leader of authority in my industry. So
Right.
that's it took a while before I got to where I am now, a director in a multinational organization. And I say that because a lot of times people will just see the LinkedIn profile, but they won't see
Right.
what it actually took for you to get there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it took 10 years, and I'm always honest with people. It took me 10 years, 4
Wow.
years of that, which I actually had, I would say, a fake promotion because
Right.
when I started at Deloitte, there was someone else who I reported to, who he at the time was the director and the leader of the team, and then he left abruptly. And so for 4 years, I kind of acted in his position, but I didn't have the title. And so
Right.
that's why I call it a sort of fake quote unquote
Yeah.
promotion.
Yeah.
And it was very frustrating because I was thinking, I'm doing all the work, I'm putting in the
Right.
time, I'm leading the
Right.
team, I have the qualifications. Why am I not moving?
Right.
Anyway, so it was a huge learning experience for me because I think, and I take responsibility, I could have definitely handled it differently, and
Right.
probably the result would be different. I would have gotten to the director position, and who knows, maybe even partner position by now.
Right.
But all these experiences that I went through in my career, I always look back and I say they were for a reason. They were so
Right.
that I could help other women who are going through the same things that I'm going through, who are
Right.
experiencing what I'm experiencing, and help them not, go through the pitfalls or learn from some of the things I learned so that they could do things differently and have much better results. So yeah, that's what my career was. Of course, when I moved, because I mentioned I moved to Kenya,
Right.
and that was 2 years into my career. Kind of felt like I had to start over because Kenya is a very different economy to South Africa.
Right.
In South
Absolutely.
Africa, if you're black and you're a woman, I mean, you are a token hire. So everyone wants
Mm.
to hire you. And so getting a job was not difficult.
Right.
But in Kenya, it's different, right? Of course, the population is very different. The working population is very small compared
Right.
to an economy like South Africa. And getting
Mm.
a placement took me time. So I think I stayed out of work for, was it 1.5 years?
Wow.
Yeah, 1.5 years.
Right.
I had the qualification. I was an actuary already, but people just didn't want to hire me because they felt either I was going to be too expensive or I didn't have enough experience for the
Right.
qualifications that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also another challenge that I had
Right.
to go through before I, got the job that I had that I have now. And I always tell my friends or tell people on LinkedIn how I actually got this job through LinkedIn. So
Interesting.
literally connected with the person who hired me. And it didn't happen immediately. It actually took, I think it was 1 or 2 years before I actually got the job.
Wow.
But I was persistent. I didn't give up.
Yeah.
I kept in touch. And somehow thankfully,
Yeah.
this opportunity to work in this team came through, 2 years later after I had started connecting with Thomas, who was my previous direct supervisor.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a career of very interesting ups and downs. And, like I always say, we always think the corporate ladder is like a straight, literally a
Yeah.
ladder, but it
Yeah.
isn't. It has a lot of kinks and curves that you don't see.
Right.
And when you experience them, you think, oh, is there something wrong with me? Is there something I'm not doing right? No, it's very normal. But you have to be persistent and you have to really be clear on what exactly it is that you want and just
Right.
keep taking action until you get it.
Right. Oh, that's very inspiring. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit yeah, out of words. Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, awesome. Very, very cool. So I'm just gonna move to the next question. So my question is, what has been one pivotal moment in your life that has shaped your career? And the follow-up question is, what has been your greatest achievement in your career so far?
Pivotal moment. Wow, one. Oh, that's very difficult. I can think of two, one that was negative, one that was positive. So
Okay.
let me start with the bad news first.
Mhm.
So one day I was presenting to a board, so a board of an insurance company. They operate across Africa. So this was like the most executive board. So the Africa CEO was there, the directors were there, the chair of the board was there, and we were asked to present insights on the industry in the context of East Africa.
Right.
So prepare the presentation, get my team to do the research, put the data together. And then, yeah, we were ready to go. So it was me, it was my boss, and then it was his boss. So, like, literally three levels. So, because we treated this very, very seriously because of the level of people who are attending this meeting. So I open the slides when we get to the meeting. They introduce us,
Mm.
and I was tasked now to do the presentation. So my boss and his boss just did an introduction or an overview, and then I was tasked to go into the details of what we
Right.
wanted to present. So I opened the slides, and then I realized that there were two people at the end. So
Right.
some of the people attending, some of the senior people attending, and they were speaking to each other, like chatting. And everyone else was looking at the slides, at what I was presenting, and I was wondering, what are they saying? Why are they having this side chat? So I just
Mm.
continued talking through the data and the statistics, and
Right.
then they literally started giggling and like having this
Jeez.
side laugh. And I'm like, oh my
What?
goodness, there must be something wrong on my slides. And then one of them asks, are these numbers in millions or billions? And then that's when I realized, oh my goodness, these numbers are wrong because we had converted
Right.
them to dollars. And I think the way the conversion was done was wrong. The graphs, the horizontal
Wow.
axis was
Right.
labeled incorrectly. It was just the most embarrassing moment
Right.
that I can remember of my career. And like I said, my boss and his boss were there, right?
Yeah. So
So
the
all the
expectations are
decision
very
makers of
high.
my career journey.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So stakes were really high. And, we had come prepared with, all guns blazing with everyone as senior as we can get to come to this meeting, and here I am messing things up
Right.
even before we've started the presentation.
Wow.
And I still remember my our overall leader, like, she was looking at me and she was whispering, saying, just continue presenting, because now they had started this side chat and they were talking. So I was not sure, should I continue, should I just apologize and just continue with the message?
Right.
It was just one of those really, really low moments. And
Right.
after that, it took a while for me to get back to feeling confident that I could speak.
Right.
And obviously, it was really hard managing the situation with my team,
Right.
because I felt really disappointed that they could make a mistake like that, given the
Right.
stakes that were
Mm.
there, and the fact that we really needed to put our best foot forward with this client. But at the same time, I also had to take responsibility because I should have also reviewed more thoroughly. So it shaped my career in the sense that while it affected my confidence,
Hmm.
it also taught me a lot about failing and getting
Right.
back up, because I think that the failures in our lives are the ones that teach us the most.
Right.
right, are the ones that teach us the most, especially if you can come back and say, well, I can do this. I failed, or, there's a lot of things to learn from here. How can I use this experience to
Right.
be better the next time I do this thing?
Right.
And so I learned so much from that experience. And it's interesting how we weigh failures so much, and we think that when people look at us, after we've experienced or we've had a low moment, that
Mm-hmm.
people just think back to that or that moment. And I was asking my leader, but she's now the CEO of the firm, the other day. I was asking her, do you remember that time when we went to do this presentation and it went just so horribly wrong? And she was like, no, I don't remember. And I'm thinking, what? I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it was such a big deal. I thought
Right. Yeah.
everyone remembered it. Every time they
Right.
see me, that's all they remember.
I remember you by,
And
yeah.
exactly. And they don't. They don't. Things are
Mm-hmm.
actually not as bad as we think they are. So
Right.
for me, that was the biggest, learning lesson from that experience. And to be able to speak to these same people, to be able to even secure, work, and to be able to present to them again with
Right.
confidence and with conviction, for me was, one of the biggest sort of validation, self-validation, that I got this, I can do this.
Right.
And a setback is not going to determine the trajectory or where I go in my career. So
Right.
that was one of the career shaping moments. The other one was obviously when I got promoted to associate director. I
Right.
never thought that it would happen that soon. And I remember my team leader saying he didn't think I was ready. I had just come from maternity leave
Right.
and there was a lot going on. I had gone through a leadership assessment before when
Mm-hmm.
I before I went on maternity leave, and there was a lot of things I needed to work on, and so he felt it was too soon. And when he gave that feedback to the talent review committee,
Right.
they thought, no, this she's going to be ready. Give her the chance and she'll be ready.
Right.
And two things I learned from that. First of all, have advocates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your boss does not have to be the only one that determines how far you go or how fast you go in your career. And the other thing I learned from that is you will never be ready.
Right.
You will never ever be ready. There will never be a perfect time. And,
Right.
thankfully I passed that leadership assessment and made associate director. But it goes to show that when you put your mind towards something, it will happen,
Right.
right? No
Mm-hmm.
matter what other people think, even people who you would have hoped would have more faith in you than they did, when you put your mind towards something, you will make it happen. So I would say those were the two really career defining moments
Right.
of my career journey so far.
Nice. Nice. So Rebecca, you're telling us a bit about, these two career defining experiences. The first one being, you having this presentation in front of your manager, your manager, and the figures just not being correct, right? And then the second
Yeah.
one, of course, has been one of, like, I guess you could say sort of like the greatest achievement is that, being you gaining the position about being an associate director, right? Um, so my next
Mm-hmm.
question for you is, what is the biggest challenge you've ever had in your life, and how did you overcome it?
As it relates to my career.
It can be career, it can be personal. You can respond however if you see fit.
That is a very good question. So career-wise, I would say I think one of the biggest challenges is how do because I was just naturally a misfit, right? I
Mm-hmm.
joined an organization. I don't think I mentioned earlier, I was the only Black woman in the team.
Wow, interesting.
So that was interesting. So I was just naturally a misfit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really hard to try and assimilate because even in leadership, there were very few people who looked like me. Like
Right.
right now, 8, 10 years later, there has been a bit of transformation, but then it was really, really hard. And so that, went on with me. And even when I moved to Kenya, I would
Right.
still find myself in rooms where I was either the youngest person. And so I felt like I had to do so much more like heavy lifting to validate myself and to
Right.
make myself feel heard. And just being in an environment where I felt seen, heard, and I felt I could just be comfortable as I am and
Right.
just to
Mm-hmm.
bring me as I am to the table,
Right.
was probably one of the biggest challenges I faced. And then I'm an introvert. So
Right.
add on the natural misfit to the fact that I'm an introvert. And,
Right.
we know that introverts are generally not seen as natural leaders. I think that
Right.
narrative is changing now because we're
Mm-hmm.
talking more about inclusive leadership, about the fact that you can be a leader and not have to be, outgoing. We
Right.
know so many amazing, exceptional leaders who are self proclaimed introverts, Bill Gates being one of them. And so for me, I think that challenge of just bringing my authentic self and not feeling
Right.
like it was going to work against my career was
Right.
one of the biggest challenges I had to face. And I know you always hear, be yourself,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you hear it, but do you necessarily apply it? Not always,
Mm.
especially in the corporate world. People are wearing facades left, right, and
Right.
center. People
That's
are
true.
not being 100%
That's
themselves.
true.
But I found for me that when I started showing up 100% as myself, not feeling like I had to be the one to say something in every meeting, not feeling like
Right.
I had to be the one to kind of explain myself as to why I dressed the way I did, why my hair
Right.
was the way it was,
Right.
and not like my white colleagues. When I started to just show up as myself and be myself and not fear retaliation or what other people were going to think,
Right.
that's when I started to really experience career freedom and fulfillment.
Right.
So I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges I've faced in my career. In my life, so I lost my mother when I was young,
Mm.
and
Sorry to
so
hear
that
that.
that has been something that I've yeah that's been something that I've carried with me
Mm.
for a long time, and I think it was dormant in my probably teenage, young adult years. But when you become a mother, you realize the importance of having a mother.
Right.
And so it's been challenging to not have that mother figure in my life
Mm.
and to have to kind of navigate and figure things out myself. But I've also used this as an opportunity to lean on other strong women in my life and to take
Right.
inspiration from them, my mother-in-law being one of them. So I would say those are, yeah, probably the biggest challenges I've had to experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I actually really resonate with your second challenge about, losing your mother at a young age. Like I lost my father at a pretty young age. So likewise, it's for me right now, it's navigating life and trying to be a man without there being like, a father figure that's sort of
Mm-hmm.
the benchmark. But I think I've just been very, very blessed, and I'm very grateful to have an extremely strong mother and extremely strong aunties and family friends and uncles that have just been sort of great guides for me in terms of how should I perceive things, how should I navigate life. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really resonate with your second challenge a lot. um so my next question is, what advice would you give someone who's trying to do the same things as you?
I would say, first of all, just be authentic, show up as yourself unapologetically. Then I would say, don't be afraid to try,
Okay.
right? If I didn't raise my hand and do that presentation and go through that experience, I wouldn't be the leader that I am now, right? I wouldn't be the confident speaker that I am now. I had to
Right.
go through that experience, but to go through that experience, I had to put my hand up and
Right.
be willing to try,
Yeah.
even though I knew I wasn't perfect at that time. Neither am I perfect now.
Right.
So I would say they're, planning, thinking, overthinking, all those things will hold you back
Mm.
from just taking action and getting the results. So just try. Don't be afraid to try. And I was reading story of the founder of Spanx, Sarah Blakely, and she was
Terribly, yeah.
saying when she was growing up, yeah, when she was growing up, her dad, um, and I hope we can borrow a leaf from this as
Right.
parents. Her dad will always ask her and her brother every single day at the dinner table, what did you fail at? And if they didn't have an answer to say what they did that they failed in on that day, their dad would say, you've done a bad job. Go back
Wow.
tomorrow and fail at something.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
Because it's when
interesting.
you fail at something that's when you get better. You have to be willing to fail to get good at
Right.
something.
Hmm.
Right. I'm sure you're in the tech space. The number
Yeah.
of beta tests that are done before something actually works is
Absolutely.
insane.
Yeah.
And we can apply the same thing in our lives as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 100%. I think it's important, like a lot of people just need to understand fully that, failing is just part of the journey. It's just part of the experience towards trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And they shouldn't necessarily look at it as a failure, but it's really more of a learning lesson, right? You're just moving steps
Exactly.
a lot closer towards accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish. And it's not really necessarily a failure per se.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, my next question for you is, where are you heading to? What are some of the things you're hoping to accomplish in the next couple of years?
Oh wow. Yeah, looking into the future.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my big visions is to get at least 10,000 women. I don't know how. Don't ask me the how,
Right.
but I want
Right.
to get 10,000 women into leadership positions in the
I love
next
that.
5 years. That's my big goal. How
Yeah.
it's going to happen, I don't know. But for me at this stage, impact is really what I am looking to achieve.
Right.
Um, and really be able to make a difference. And that's why people like Lewis Hamilton inspire me in so many ways,
Right.
because you realize that it doesn't take a lot to make a difference, right?
Right.
You don't have to have all the money. Just
Hmm.
be there to inspire people.
Right.
Inspire people with your own story. Share your
Right.
story, share your experiences. And so for me, I feel that's the trajectory, or that's the path that I am going to in my career. And of
Hmm.
course, I still want to grow my credibility. I still want to grow my
Right.
personal brand
Right.
as it relates to my formal corporate career. But
Mhm.
the pinnacle of my career would just be impacting and getting 10,000 women into
Yeah.
leadership some way, somehow.
Yeah, I love that. That's really great. And I hope it happens. Honestly, it would be awesome to have that conversation once it's been accomplished, and we have 10,000 strong women in leadership positions. So that'll be a beautiful thing for sure. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I will
So
watch this 5 years from now.
yeah, we're going to be watching very keenly, all of us, very very keenly.
Yeah, yeah.
So the next set of questions are a bit more personal. And the first question I have for you is, do you practice self-improvement? And if so, what do you do?
Oh, yes, I do. I have like a whole bunch of books on my office desk right here.
Yeah, yeah.
And this
Which
is
one's your
this is
favorite?
also something. Oh, that's such a difficult question. Oh my goodness. Hmm.
Like if I told you you had to pick one for one day, which one would you read?
No, that's a very difficult question. Why are you putting me in this position? Oh my goodness. Whew. Well, I love Michelle Obama, so I would probably say it's not a
Mhm.
self-development book, but there's a lot you can learn from her book, Becoming. I would probably say, yeah, at the moment that would be my top book. But as it relates to self-development and improvement, um, I would say, sure, this is really hard. But I would say Think and Grow Rich because I think
Right.
it's
It's a
just
great book.
one of those, yeah, tried
Yeah.
and tested.
Yeah,
And even
absolutely.
when I read these other books, they are all based on the principles in that book.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you realize it's
Yeah.
funny, like a lot of these self-improvement books, they sort of just relate with each other. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I actually got really good advice from an uncle once, and he told me that, like, when you're reading things, when you find that a lot of the books are sort of saying the same things, then it must be true what they're saying, right? And that's what
Absolutely.
you should take as the sole truth, right? The fact that they're all saying the same thing, that thing is actually what's true. Anything else is just like fluff, but
Yeah.
that main thing is that's what's true.
Very, very true. And I've realized even like people who talk about self-development, like from a Christian perspective, and
Mhm.
those who talk about it from a maybe more philosophical or scientific perspective, they're actually all saying the same
Yeah,
thing, to be
yeah,
honest, at the
yeah.
end of the day. So I agree
Mhm.
with what you're saying.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. All right. So my next question is, what is one area of your life you feel you could improve on?
That is a very good question. Definitely giving more time to my kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice, nice.
Yeah. They're
Okay.
only a certain age for a certain time. So
True.
that's something I'm striving towards more and more. Um, and like I said, it's just unfortunate that as women, your career peaks at the same time when you're also trying to raise your family. So
Right.
it takes a lot of effort to have that balance and have those boundaries.
Right. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So my next question is actually still similar topic, right? What does being a woman mean to you? And actually, even let's get even more specific, right? What does being a mother mean to you?
Oh, yeah, I feel so with that question. I think that responsibility,
Mhm.
first of all, there's no experience you can compare to bringing a whole human being into the
Right.
world.
Hmm.
But then it hits you that the responsibility of not just taking care of them, because I feel like being a mother is not just the fact that you can give birth to a child. It's nurturing that child. It's giving that
Right.
child unconditional love. It is being there for that child, even though they aren't exactly what you were expecting. It is not giving up on your child
Right.
when other people maybe do. It is being there for them
Right.
irrespective of the circumstances, and not forgetting that the most important thing or the most important priority is always going to be your family and your children
Right.
as a mother. And it sounds like a huge responsibility, but then again, I feel like it's such a huge privilege because not
Right.
everyone will have that
That's
opportunity
true. That's very
um
true.
to be a mom. So yeah, it's one of those mixed, I don't even know how to explain. It's
Yeah.
just one of those things that you have these mixed, not mixed feelings, but the responsibility is so serious, but
Right.
then again, the love that you get from it, the gratitude, the person you
Right.
become
Hmm.
as you grow into motherhood is just an experience it's really hard to explain, to be honest, in
Right.
words.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those. I mean, I don't know personally, but I imagine it's like you have to experience it yourself to really understand fully what it means to be a mother, right?
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. And I think
Nice.
once you become one, you realize that the sacrifice your parents made, that
Right.
your mother made, all the things that they went through for you to be where you are, you just have a new profound perspective
Right.
and gratitude for it.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
sure also an appreciation too, because you realize just how,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just how much effort and, like you said, just the responsibility, the weight of it that's there.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, like we were talking about homework, and doing homework with kids is not easy. And when I look back and remember how, my parents would do homework with me every day
Right.
without fail. They would
Wow.
not give up if I'm not getting things right. They would sit with me for hours until I do. I mean, it's a very simple example, but it
Right.
takes a lot of time investment, energy
Hmm.
investment, and willingness to put that time in your child,
Right.
for them to, come out right on the other side.
Wow. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. It's funny. Like, I mean, obviously for me, I'm like really young, so I still have quite a lot of years ahead of me. But I just imagine, right? It's just these little things that my parents have done for me that once I do have kids, it's like I'll begin to really appreciate them because I'll be having that same experience
Mm-hmm.
with my own children as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. So yeah, so my last question for you is, what does Alpha Delta mean to you?
Oh, the first word that came to my mind was just inspiration, inspiring.
Mm, right,
So I would say, yeah, that's probably what it means to me. Because that's what my gut feel is. But I think it's also, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like it's a movement that is showing people that you have a lot more power than you think you do,
right. Hmm.
to shape your destiny, to shape your life as you want it to be, right?
Hmm.
And you can take that into your own hands just based on the guests that you've been having. For me, that's the thread in, or the commonalities in the messaging that I would
Right,
say I've picked.
right. Interesting. Wow, thanks. That's really nice.
I
All
hope
right.
that rings a bell.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's very, very it connects with just what I'm trying to build. I always ask this question to the guests. Well, at least I'm trying to do it now just because I want to get that perspective from the guests because I myself know why I gave it that title. And just to share it for you, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
when I was thinking about, okay, um, I know I'm connected to, and I know a lot of people are doing very inspiring things. How do I categorize this group of people, right? And the funny thing is, like, I was thinking about like frats and sororities in like American universities, which is where I went to, right? And usually, like a frat, a
Yeah.
sorority, you have a group of people, they have like a shared common mission, they do activities together. So the name
Mm-hmm.
Alpha came from like, like a sort of a frat or a sorority that's called Alpha, and then Delta just sort of it came in the process, but like more or less, I was also just really thinking about, Alpha, like these are people who are striving to be the best version of themselves. And then Delta is about, they're constantly improving, constantly wanting to change to help them reach that goal of being the best version of themselves. So that's sort of how,
Yeah.
yeah, it sort of came together as a title. Um,
Awesome. So I'm spot on. I'm right on it.
Yeah, yeah, right on, right on, right. Yeah, yeah, very, very right on. Yes, so we've come to the end of this conversation. Thank you so much for just taking the time. I think just final remarks, where can people find you? And is there anything that you want to like, promote or plug on this episode? Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll find me. I hang out on LinkedIn almost every day. So you'll find me there. My LinkedIn name is Rebecca Muriuki. So just search Rebecca Muriuki, but happy to share the link, which you can then put on the show notes. In terms of Instagram, I'm also there at Rebecca K. Muriuki. So if you're more of an Instagram person, yeah, definitely hang out with me over there. Follow me, send me a DM. And I do have, because for me, I said elevating people to leadership is what I'm all about. So I just recently launched the Position to Promotion Guide, which will give you 5 steps to how to actually secure that next promotion you're working towards,
Right.
especially if you're working towards a leadership position. So definitely check the guide out. It is at bit.ly bit.ly/position2promotion and get your copy over there.
Nice, awesome. And for anyone watching, I'll put all these links in the description of this video and the part of the podcast, so you can just scroll through the description and find all the links right there. Right. So, thank you so much again, Rebecca, for, just taking the time on being this episode of AlphaDelta. For everyone watching, this is a podcast where we have conversations with people who are operating at a higher level with the hopes that, it motivates and inspires people to become the best version of themselves. I've been your host, Joe Karaoke, and I'm here with my guest, Rebecca Muriuki. And this is going to be a goodbye from us, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.